Hi, welcome to Midpointe, a place where we can share encouragement from last Sunday's sermon at Crosspoint Church. This last Sunday, Pastor Garrett started us on a new book of the Bible, 1 Peter. We went over the first 3 verses there as an introduction, even an introduction to Peter himself, the author of the book. Peter walked with Jesus, and now he's writing this letter to believers. A quick Google search told me that it was about 30 years after Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection that Peter is writing this book. It's cool to have different glimpses into Peter's life. And we even get to see some of his acts that he did after Jesus went back into heaven. We get to compare and contrast the young Peter versus the older Peter. And Pastor Garrett even did that in his sermon as well. Something I think about quite often is the concept of a backstory. We see it in movies all the time. A prequel comes out and it explains to us how our hero got to where he is today. And it's usually filled with struggle, conflict, and a lot of hard work. The difficult times come before the successful time. We can see Peter's time with Jesus as a time of learning and growing. Learning through walking with him, but also learning through failure. When I'm struggling and feel like I'm not where I want to be, I think to myself, well, I'm still in my backstory. I'm still growing and building up to better things. And that can be a comfort. But the question must be asked, when does the backstory stop and the real story begin? We can kind of make it whatever we want it to be. You go to school for nursing, and now you're a nurse. You meet someone new, and then you've been married for 30 years. It's a good practice to look back on our relationship with Jesus and then look at where we are today and see the growth and see the ways that we've been able to trust Jesus and he's come through for us. Just like we can look at Peter's life. But if we're looking at our life as a whole and not just a few snapshots, when does our backstory end? Because you could be in your 80s, 90s and feel like I'm still struggling with things. Like, surely I'm not still in my backstory. Well, for the believer, there's a pretty solid answer for this. Our backstory ends when our time on this earth ends. So when Peter wrote 1 Peter, he was actually still in his backstory. In Romans 8:18, Paul says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." So our whole life is a backstory. We will actually experience life more once we die. So the best is yet to come. It's great to see changes in our life, to look back and say, I was in a very different place there. My relationship with Jesus has grown so much. I don't have the same worries, the same struggles, because I have learned to put my trust and faith in God. So in that sense, you can say, that was my backstory, learning that, and now I'm here. But you can also say, this whole thing is my backstory. There may be struggles, constant failure, but I know that all of this is going to be worth it once I reach heaven, once I reach living with Jesus forever. And that's a great comfort. All these things, they're temporary. We just have to endure for now. And it's not just that. Like, we have the Holy Spirit. We have Jesus with us. He is giving us life right now. I'm excited to get into more of 1 Peter. A few months ago, Robbie from church went to his son's 6th grade camp. And they went over some of 1 Peter. And he came back and he's like, guys, 1 Peter's so great. You guys should read it. So I read it when he brought it up, and it is really good. So I was really excited that Pastor is going to go over it with the whole church. So I encourage you, get a jump start on it. It's not a long book. You could read, even if you want to read a little bit as we go with Pastor. How much he's going to preach on is posted online. So just go to, I think it's the homepage. If not the homepage, then it's on the bulletin page. And see what's going to be covered this next week. Read up on it, and so we can be ready to glean what God has for us on the Sundays. As always, I invite you to join us on Sundays. Our services are from 10:30 to around 12 or 11:45, around that time. Well, until next time, God bless.